right, so let's get started. I'm Vinny Aggarwal. I teach at UC Berkeley, and I think this is a very important panel on sustainable intelligence. So our discussion today focuses on a central tension.
Can we get silence in the room? There's people. Hey, MR.
Yes, could we quiet in the room, please? I'll have to use my academic...
People can meet outside and...
academic voice and yell at people, but I won't do that yet. So the central tension we see is AI we've talked about the extraordinary potential to advance innovation, climate mitigation, economic competitiveness, and at the same time, there's a very important issue with environmental impact, and that is the demand for electricity is increasing, we have advanced chips, we have a demand for rare materials, and we need water for cooling. And yet, AI also might help with those very problems in terms of grid optimization, materials discovery, climate forecasting, and the like. But I would like to think that the challenge, as we've heard, is not simply technical. It spans industrial policy, geopolitics, transnational regulation, and global equity, all issues dear to my heart since I teach political science at Berkeley in the business school and the political science department. So we heard from Vinod K, and I would say it was a very interesting presentation, and I would call him a very impressive techno-optimist. In that world, we have improving solutions to health problems, welfare problems, educational problems, energy usage, we have the creation of wealth, we have new jobs being created, and we have global equity. I am the other Vinod Aggarwal, not Vinod K, and in my pessimistic view, one can have a different world. In this world, AI uses up a lot of water, uses up a lot of electricity. We have job losses, which were kind of papered over. Yeah, there might be job losses, but people will find other things to do, as long as it's not me who's part of the job losses. I have tenure, so I'm okay. And AI warfare with autonomous agents. So I am a little bit less optimistic than some of the other participants. Having said that, I'm open to changing my mind, and I know there's some people here who will try to change my mind, and I've already been convinced slightly that some of the problems that I've identified can be solved. But I would like to start with the ambassador first and ask this question, that the EU is very advanced and known for its skills in regulatory standard setting, Digital Act and the like, and this has been called the Brussels effect by Professor Anu Bradford of Columbia University. So the first question is, are you concerned that strict sustainability requirements and AI regulation might actually lead to a shift of innovation away from Europe to other regions of the world, or do you see the EU's efforts at regulation leading to some kind of competitive advantage for Europe?
Well, thank you very much. Thanks first of all, for having me here, Vinod, and thanks for the Consul General of India. You know, it's always a bad habit to answer the question no, like no, I'm not concerned. But let's start from the positive note. First of all, you know, European countries and the European Union member countries were not blessed to have natural resources, especially natural energy resources in our soil. That means that actually sustainability is not only the question of the future generations and making sure that we have somewhere to live in 30 or 50 years, at least not us, maybe our children or grandchildren, but as well the question of affordability of, in general, having a possibility to have any kind of energy. So energy resources is the question of economic security and security as such. The second point I would say is that if you're actually building something new, and I think everybody in this room, you know, with the job losses, without job losses, with the challenges we can identify with the AI, probably we can agree that actually we are facing AI revolution, or if not, don't like the word revolution, we're facing something extraordinary and something new. So when you build something new, you probably are keen to build on the highest possible standards. So that means that if you build something like AI, you have to follow your own sustainability standards. You don't build something which would be not energy efficient as much as it's possible. And it's a bit of, people would say that it's a bit of chicken and egg question. First, do you invest in energy efficiency and then build AI, or AI helps you to ensure energy efficiency? So in general, it doesn't really work one without another. So I think this is where but if we do something new and something such extraordinary as AI, we have to do it within our sustainability standards. And yes, you mentioned we have wonderful regulations. We are very proud. If you say that there's a Brussels effect, yes, it's nice to have a Brussels effect. But first of all, we are not doing to have a Brussels effect. We are doing and regulating for ourselves, and we are doing that because it's a demand of our citizens. But to say that, and to answer maybe your question about innovation, nothing of none of the innovation or accessibility to energy resources, even there are certain sustainability technologies, nothing of that would happen if we do that alone. And that's why I think that the cooperation, and especially transatlantic cooperation, but as well cooperation with the countries like the AI advanced like India is extremely important. So I would say those 3 points which actually pushes us towards sustainability, energy efficiency, accessibility, and then to use AI to make sure that we have the right information, right intelligence, and manage our networks in a way that it actually works.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask one more geopolitical question, and then we'll come to the energy issues. So the geopolitical question I'd like to ask is that we heard competition with China. We heard one speaker say we are helping to build American capacity in AI. So there is a certain nationalism to AI, and the EU is obviously concerned about that as well. And we've seen all of these efforts to intervene through industrial policy. So we have the CHIPS Act, we have the Inflation Reduction Act, we have the EU CHIPS Act. So my question is, if all countries are intervening with industrial policy to promote their own AI industries, and given the weakness of the WTO for reasons I think that are pretty obvious to everyone, how will we manage this potential conflict over the competitive subsidization of AI, and will that lead to further conflict among the EU, China, US, India, and other key players?
Race to the bottom is not really the choice. I think it's pretty clear if you look at what kind of technologies we are adopting in developing our AI, what kind of technologies we are adopting when we are building the beta data centers, gigafactories, or whatever. It's pretty clear that it's never ever only European technologies or the technologies which were produced in the EU. So that actually answers the question that without the cooperation, without internet, be it a transatlantic cooperation, be it cooperation with other countries which are advancing, it's not possible and not sustainable in other way. That we have. But one thing which actually I think we have to work all together, of course, there will be always a competition, and competition drives innovation, and it's healthy to have a competition. So competition is not our major concern. I think what should be our major concern, who actually globally are setting the standards, and how much of security we can guarantee, how much we can invest in privacy, how much we may actually ensure that non-market economies or some countries who are behind those words of non-market economies can actually influence our standards, can actually weaponize their technologies and their resources, so we are prevented from investment to building up AI or any other groundbreaking technology. So I think that, and standard setting is always will be the key priority for us. And standard setting not only within our EU 27 member states, but actually having really a proper, very grounded cooperation with US first of all, but with the others, like you can say, like-minded countries, if you wish.
Thank you very much. So let's turn now to some technical issues and some optimistic solutions. So we know that data centers today are using up about 2 to 3% of global electricity, depends how you measure these things. And some people say we're nearing structural limits, grid constraints, cooling capacity, siting challenges. And so now the question becomes are you guys able to do anything about all of these problems? Or is there going to be a moratorium on data centers, as some people have talked about, grid stress, water shortages, and is this going to be, I'm not going to say a disaster, but real significant problems? So let's start with Justin. I know all of your companies think about these issues a lot. So Justin, can you give us a quick response to that?
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to start my answer by saying yes. We can do all of the above, just like different cycles of technology innovation that we have seen in the last few decades. There are always challenges and engineering problems to solve, and this AI cycle definitely presents some opportunities and some challenges at the technical level. So for folks who might not be closely familiar with Equinix, we are a physical infrastructure provider. 27 years of existence. We have today about 275 data centers globally, 2 in India, where we support 300 customers. And you can think of us as a viable alternative to public clouds. So for companies who want to deploy their physical infrastructure at the place outside the cloud, they come to our data centers, and we have a pretty rich ecosystem of digital players that are operating in our data centers. We support 10,000 customers today globally. And what we see in the AI boom today is really an unprecedented demand for infrastructure and for power. We used to build data centers based on the availability of land, then maybe connectivity, fiber, etc. But the new demand for infrastructure has completely changed the game. As you mentioned, Vinod, the demand for power and energy for infrastructure and data centers it's set to double within the next 4 to 5 years. Today, the global electricity demand for data centers represents about 1.5% of the global electricity demand, and that's set to anticipated to become 3%, which, while still negligible, it's a big problem to solve. And the company like Equinix, we really try to achieve the right balance between speed, flexibility, and all sustainability first. One last thought on that is that we were actually the first data center operator that back in 2015 committed to providing and having 100% renewable energy across our complete fleet of data centers by 2030. And we have taken great strides to achieving that goal today, 96% renewable coverage across our data centers. And because of our global presence, we always try to ensure that we have a green mix of energy sources across our fleet that can be anything from grid to fuel cells to newer technologies such as MSR, modular reactions. We just signed 3 deals. And to answer your question about moratoriums, yes, there are setbacks at local levels in certain regions, but at the global level, I think these do not represent a significant threat and challenge today. Noting that AI, just like traditional compute, is becoming distributed. I actually coined the term distributed AI about 5 to 6 years ago. Both for training and inference, there is a lot more options today because of the distributed nature of AI.
Thank you very much. Varun?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me, Dr. Reddy. Delighted to be here. I am worried, Vinod, but I want to talk about how we go from the Vinod A path to the Vinod K path. Here's why. You mentioned, Justin, that data centers today account for 1% going to 3% of global electricity demand, but we're at the very beginning of an exponential. What scares me is over the next decade, when we get to double digits of electricity demand globally, and in the United States, we'll meet that before the end of this decade, going from 4% today to 12% before 2030. If it's only powered by natural gas here in the United States or coal around the world like in India, the environmental impact of AI becomes substantial. You also mentioned today these moratoria are local issues, and I think you're absolutely right. But the price of eggs is what drove the American election outcome in 2024, and I fear the price of power is what's going to drive the American midterm election outcome in 2026. Today, what scares me is that data centers are on what I call the villain path. You laid this out, Vinod. Data centers come to town, they raise your power prices, they take your water, they destabilize your grid. You don't want them anywhere nearby. And I think it's time for us to transition data centers to what I call the hero path, because I think that's possible. I think data centers, AI infrastructure, AI factories can be the single most beneficial asset that a community can have, that an electricity grid can have. It can be your best neighbor. A year ago, I founded Emerald AI to actualize this thesis. A year ago, nobody knew about us, and somebody, this is Dr. Reddy, you may not have realized this, but the person who discovered us is sitting next to me, Shanker Trivedi at NVIDIA. And since then, we've worked so closely with Shanker, his organization, and NVIDIA to enable AI factories to become your best neighbor. They come to town, and because they're flexible in how they use energy, you can fit more data centers on your existing grid. You don't actually have to massively overbuild your grid to fit them. In addition, those data centers, because they can fit on existing grids, get built faster. So America becomes more competitive. It builds 100 gigawatts of data centers because there's 100 gigawatts just stranded on our grids. They lower your power bills because you didn't need to build out the power lines, and the data centers came to town and paid for their power. So your power bills went down, and your electricity grid avoided blackouts because the data centers, far from destabilizing grids, actually supported them. The last thing I'll say is next year we've announced that NVIDIA is putting out a 96 megawatt AI factory, and we're proud to support them to make it power flexible, the world's first power flexible AI factory, and we're proud to support them to make it power flexible, the world's first power flexible AI factory. It's not just America that will have friendly hero data centers. It'll be India. We'll do a trial in the United Kingdom on December 15th with National Grid, their national grid operator. This can happen worldwide. So let's take data centers from the villain to the hero path. That's my hope.
Thank you very much. Shanker, another optimistic vision, I hope.
Well, thank you, Varun, for saying nice things. And we love partnering with amazing entrepreneurs like Varun, just like we love partnering with governments. And thank you very much, Consul General Reddy, for having us here. We are very strong partners with you and with the European Union governments. And we want to partner with governments worldwide because accelerated computing is sustainable computing. We can argue, I mean, obviously, you have to agree that computing is important to all of us. And, computing is necessary for everybody. And if you believe that, which we do, we are optimists, and I hope all of us agree on that point, then accelerated computing is the only form of sustainable computing. That's the bottom line. Accelerated computing is the only energy-efficient computing. And of course, NVIDIA's Grace, Blackwell processors and quantum switches and networking are the most energy-efficient data center processors and networking that's out there in the planet. And we fully intend to stay ahead of that curve. So that's point number one. Accelerated computing is sustainable computing. The other very interesting thing about accelerated computing is it creates the opportunity for a more sustainable world and a more sustainable society and a more sustainable economy. Because AI and accelerated AI science will contribute immensely to the future of the planet. The fact that we have made AI and science and simulation more affordable, sometimes we say we have democratized it. It means that everybody can contribute to a sustainable planet. Everyone can contribute to sustainable development. So we're working very deeply right now on education and healthcare and farming and agriculture using AI in India to solve Indian problems and the judiciary and court clearing, et cetera, et cetera. But what I find looking forward super exciting is the work we are doing in accelerating AI for science. So, for example, one of the things we've contributed to is the new Earth 2 model, where we can simulate potentially the whole of Earth. We're already working with many, many nations, including India, on simulate, like we're talking 1,000 times more resolution in terms of weather and climate forecasting and prediction, 1,000 times more at 1/100th the cost of what it used to be before. 10 to the power of 3, 10 to the power of 5 times better climate simulations. Imagine that, right? Secondly, AI for materials. We need better sustainable materials. We've all seen the problems with PFAS. We have created a new open source language model to simulate chemistry, which will be used for drugs as well as materials and all sorts of simulations. We talked about it extensively at supercomputing, and the Japanese company ENEOS actually showed how they are using alchemy to create more sustainable data center materials for that supercomputing community. We've done the same thing with physics NEMO, which is simulation of fluids and airflow, so you'll have better cars, better planes, better trains, and so on. So I'm a huge believer in AI for sustainability.
Thank you very much. So let's, since you've started the theme of the benefits of AI, which I like, that's a very positive theme, let me ask Jovita about the question as how the EU has been a leader in green technologies, in wind, solar, and is very interested in making that transition away from oil, given obvious problems with the Russians and other issues that I won't go into in depth. But how is the EU thinking about AI for this green energy transition? Can you talk a little about the initiatives that the Commission has taken in this regard?
Well, thank you very much. That's a very good, timely question, because actually today all our institutions agreed actually to make all their imports of Russian gas illegal by January 2027. It's not only sanctions right now; it's legislated by law, and it's not. It is, of course, because of the Russia's aggression in Ukraine, but on top of that is the question of weaponization. As I mentioned in my introductory remarks, the question is when you are import dependent, especially on energy, you have to find out how you produce and how you produce your renewables, or how you do recycling or repurposing things, and B, how you invest in efficiency. So one of the things, and thanks for the colleague from NVIDIA actually saying, how AI can contribute to ensure the efficiency. What we are doing on the EU part and the European Commission, we hope that next year we can publish our Cloud and AI Development Act, and the idea is actually to speed up all the permitting procedures, to ensure access to energy grids, to make sure that we have there's enough land, and definitely to support all the projects which actually have sustainability and secure data there, and the data and that we encourage companies who are building AI actually to have the inbuilt algorithm which can give us the data, what is the energy effect or cost of energy in there, and what could be more efficient if it's possible to see. I think that's that any criteria which are related with sustainability are quite strict in Europe. Probably nobody will, those who are having a project in Europe can say otherwise. And I think that every component which is built in, be it GPUs or CPUs, should be as sustainable as and green as possible. I heard people are proud of the projects we're developing, be it the EU Destination Earth project, which actually is built together with several countries, not only EU, is a high-precision digital replica of Earth. And, you know, I think that the Jupyter supercomputer in Germany is probably the greenest supercomputer in the world at the moment. So, you know, it's not only about regulating and having a best of the kind of regulation, is how much of this regulation then turns into the real projects and how much of the success we have. And I think that we have good examples of that.
Thank you very much. So maybe we have several questions, so only 10 minutes left. So name two things, Justin, that AI can help the environment. If we think about environmental issues, you know, pollution, excessive energy usage, are there two things you can think of that AI will help?
Actually, AI today is being used to design and develop more performant, but also more computationally elegant chips today. So AI is actually feeding itself to become more performant, both in terms of the compute cycles and delivery, but also in the sustainability aspects of itself. And then AI today is enabling outcomes and predictions that were simply not possible or even thinkable a few years ago, in terms of being able to process large amount of data in record time to provide near real-time prediction for weather forecasts and other natural conditions that happen globally. These are my two things.
Those are good. Varun, a couple of things, just two?
Number one, AI can help us to stabilize electricity power grids. You mentioned this earlier, Vinod, but AI isn't just a way to run the operating system of the grid, although that's important. I think the AI assets themselves can be the grid's most important assets. That's number one. Number two, I'm very hopeful that AI will help us to pull onto our power systems new clean sources of energy. You know, we heard from Shanker about all the ways that AI is supercharging materials discovery, physics simulations, and Vinod K this morning talked about new sources of energy like fusion. Look, it may be 2 decades before we get there, but if we do get there, it's probably because we have a supercharged discovery process thanks to AI. But I think even in the nearer term, you're seeing a huge push toward nuclear energy, which we wouldn't otherwise have in this country absent the pull from hyperscalers and other consumers of AI to bring on a large baseload and clean source of energy. So two good things for the energy system: running the grid more efficiently and bringing on new clean sources from nuclear to geothermal.
Thank you. Shanker?
So one important fact, the cost of inferencing in terms of from our NVIDIA Hopper architecture to our Blackwell architecture has gone down from 2 joules per token to 0.2 joules per token. In other words, a 10-fold improvement, right? Just imagine that in terms of, and to give you an idea, the previous Ampere generation was 100 joules per token. Right? So that's the improvement in terms of energy efficiency. Now, what I'm excited about in terms of the AI is the other point that Vinod K talked about is the healthcare opportunity. And since we are in the India AI Impact Summit, what we are envisaging is, think about the ASHA health workers in every village in India. They will have, in the near future, an ASHA AI, provided by hundreds of our startup inception partners. So the ASHAs will have a choice. And backing all of that, we have created really rock-solid BioNeMo using technology, AI technology that we have been working on for like almost 10 plus years. Abhishek Singh talked about the digital retinopathy and the cancer detections and the gene detections and so on. All of these we can package up together into something that an ordinary healthcare worker in an Indian village can use using AI. I think that's exciting.
Thank you. We have a two-finger question.
Yes, I have it, because you asked me about policy, and I am AI consumer. You are AI professional, so you think about AI, you know, in a very sophisticated way. I will tell you, AI in Barcelona actually decreased the energy in metro, their energy usage because of AI decreased by 25%. You can just imagine how much we will pay less in New York if you're driving the car and you have the lights actually managed by AI. I would wish we actually be there. And or you like here EVs more in California. So imagine that our EV batteries can work as the stabilizer for the grid because of AI. And only AI can help that because nobody else will count each car. So I think that we have to think from the consumer perspective as well. So.
Thank you. All right, one last round of questions before lunch. We don't want to hold up lunch. So this is a question maybe more political in nature, which is that the EU is still trying to help developing countries. It's gone out of fashion for the United States to help developing countries. We used to do that. But now the question is, what role can companies play, what role can countries play who are much more advanced in AI, US, China, EU to some extent? So what role can they play in making sure we have some global equity with respect to AI usage, AI opportunities, AI talent, because otherwise we're going to end up in another technology dominated by rich Western countries, which leads to greater inequalities. So we'll start with Jovita, and everybody can have a shot at that question.
Well, someone already mentioned that. Actually, I think we have a huge advancement already that the data centers and all the gigafactories are not concentrated in one place anymore. And that's actually will give them much more opportunities everywhere. Another element, if you think about renewable solar and wind, it actually, and the technologies which AI can help with that, it definitely the location where it can happen is about the developing countries. Closer to Europe is all the Africa, and that I think that the more we advance there, the better. And of course, all the skills policy. The learning digital and learning AI would be probably the best possible investment. And for that, you have to have an educational program. Our Horizon program invest 90 billion per 7 years in the different research and education programs all around the world globally. But it's not like it sounds a big amount, but in general, it's not enough without the mobilizing the joint support from the business community as well.
Thank you, Justin. Global equity.
From our perspective, I would say we are really trying to enable the global digital economy, and we try to make access to digital infrastructure available across the world. And our investment portfolio shows that with our 275 data centers. But also we try to make sure that we provide flexibility to customers that can come with very different sets of requirements. If they want a small piece of infrastructure, if they want larger scale infrastructure, we enable cloud providers, we enable smaller enterprises, and we're also enabling sovereign AI and sovereign infrastructure across the world to make sure that requirements around data privacy, data governance, and data sovereignty can be easily met from a technical perspective. So these are some of the considerations that we are putting into the picture.
Look, I think the biggest challenge to global equity here is the energy system. The world's two most important infrastructure systems in the 21st century will be the multi-trillion-dollar energy system or electricity grid, and the multi-trillion-dollar emerging AI and fiber optic network. If you can't get access to this one, you're not going to be able to build the economic development, the AI infrastructure where you want it. Already, I fear that the only country with the available energy supply and infrastructure to build AI infrastructure is China. The United States is actively building it out. A country like India, we want to see India, as Abhishek Singh, as Dr. Reddy have said, we want to see India have far more AI infrastructure. The only way they do it is by solving this energy bottleneck. And here's my fear. This isn't automatic. Take the city of Phoenix. We started out by talking about moratoria. The city of Phoenix has a wave of data centers joining and a wave of heat waves, no pun intended, as climate change increases. That grid is strained to the point where it can't connect new data centers, and the mayor has threatened a moratorium on new ones. Tomorrow, we will publish a paper in the scientific journal Nature one of the world's top scientific journals, of a field trial we did with our colleagues at NVIDIA showcasing that in Phoenix, a data center can actually support the local grid by reducing its consumption at that worst heat wave moment, so you don't have the moratorium. Next, that should happen in India and across the developing world, because anywhere that you have this energy bottleneck, if AI can become an enabler and not a deterrent or a hindrance to energy abundance, that's where you can get global equity and democratization. If we want democratization of energy and compute, AI data centers need to become part of the solution, not the problem.
Thank you. Shanker.
So building on democratization, I mean, just like the internet and the mobile democratized communication and kind of equalized the world I think AI is also a great leveler. And AI will make everybody more productive and more intelligent and so on. And we wake up every morning at NVIDIA thinking how to make AI more affordable, more accessible, more available to everybody on the planet. It doesn't matter who you are, you should be able to use AI. We must not have a digital colonization of any form. And so we really want to work together with our NVIDIA cloud partners and like Equinix and so on to really help accelerate that democratization.
Thank you very much.